October 25th, 1936. In the heart of Europe, two dictators stood on the edge of history. Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, leaders of two proud nations bound by ambition, resentment, and dreams of empire. On that day, they forged an alliance that would change the fate of the world. An agreement that would soon be known as the Rome-Berlin Axis. To understand why this moment mattered, we must go back to the years that followed the Great War, the First World War. Germany had been humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, stripped of its colonies, its army limited, and its economy shattered. Meanwhile, Italy, though counted among the victors, felt betrayed. It had fought alongside Britain and France, but received little of the territorial rewards it had been promised. A sense of injustice burned deeply in both nations, a resentment that extremists would soon exploit. In 1922, Benito Mussolini marched to Rome and took power, establishing the world's first fascist regime. He promised to make Italy great again, to resurrect the glory of the Roman Empire. A decade later, in 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany. He too spoke of national rebirth, of vengeance, of destiny. Two men, two ideologies, similar in spirit, yet driven by their own visions of greatness. At first, Mussolini looked down on Hitler. He saw him as a reckless fanatic, an imitator of Italian fascism. When Hitler tried to annex Austria in 1934, Mussolini sent Italian troops to the Brenner Pass to block him. At that moment, Mussolini still considered himself a defender of European order, even a potential ally of Britain and France. But things changed quickly. In 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, seeking to prove Italy's might and avenge its colonial defeat of 1896. The invasion was brutal. Poison gas, mass executions, and atrocities against civilians. The League of Nations condemned it. Britain and France imposed sanctions, freezing trade and cutting off supplies. Mussolini was furious. He saw it as betrayal by the Western democracies he had once courted. And then, out of the shadows, came Hitler. While the world punished Italy, Germany stepped forward. Berlin supplied Rome with coal, oil, and steel, defying the sanctions. Hitler sent messages of support, calling Mussolini's conquest a bold act of national pride. Slowly, the Italian dictator began to turn away from London and Paris and toward Berlin. By early 1936, the shift was unmistakable. Germany remilitarized the Rhineland in open violation of the Versailles Treaty, and once again the League of Nations did nothing. The democracies talked, but they did not act. For Mussolini, the lesson was clear. Strength was respected, weakness was ignored. And Hitler, he realized, was not a madman. He was the future. On October 25, 1936, the two leaders formalized their cooperation. The agreement was modest in wording, a pledge to consult each other on political and military matters. But beneath the paper lay something far greater, a shared vision of conquest. Both men despised communism. Both wanted to overturn the world order built after 1919. and both dreamed of new empires, Germany in Europe, Italy in Africa and the Mediterranean. Mussolini soon gave the alliance a name. On November 1st, 1936, speaking before a cheering crowd in Milan, he declared that a line had been drawn through Europe, an axis connecting Rome and Berlin, around which, he said, all European states may revolve if they wish peace. In truth, it was not peace he offered, but submission. The Axis powers were born. Behind the scenes, German and Italian officers began secret military talks. Their armies studied each other's tactics, their pilots trained side by side, and in Spain, the alliance was tested in blood. When the Spanish Civil War broke out that same year, Germany and Italy both rushed to support General Francisco Franco. German bombers leveled cities. Italian troops fought on the ground. It was a rehearsal, a grim preview of the war to come. Meanwhile, Britain and France watched in silence, trapped by fear and indecision. They hoped appeasement would preserve peace, but each concession only fed the dictator's hunger. The balance of power was shifting, and few realized how far it would tilt. The Rome-Berlin axis was more than a military partnership. It was a declaration of ideology, the union of fascism and Nazism. Mussolini admired Hitler's racial purity laws. Hitler admired Mussolini's iron control of the state. Together, they saw themselves as architects of a new order, one ruled not by diplomacy or democracy, but by strength and destiny. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Mussolini still saw Italy as the senior partner, the heir to Rome's ancient empire. But in time, it would be clear that Germany held the real power. When Hitler annexed Austria in 1938, Mussolini, who had once opposed it, now did nothing. He was no longer the master of events, but their follower. Still, in 1936, the illusion was complete. Crowds in both nations cheered, flags of the swastika and the fasces fluttered side by side. Propaganda films spoke of eternal brotherhood, of destiny, of empire reborn. The world was told that a new dawn was rising, but in truth, it was the coming of night. The Rome-Berlin axis laid the foundation for everything that followed. The invasion of Poland, the fall of France, the devastation of Europe. And when Japan joined the alliance in 1940, the Axis became a global force, stretching from Berlin to Tokyo, bound by conquest and ideology. It all began here, in October and November of 1936, with a handshake between two dictators, a few pages of signed paper, and the silence of nations too wearied to resist. From that silence, the Second World War would be born.